Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is an Operations Management Aggregate Planning homework video. Plan number 4, minimum cost with constraints. This is plan 4 of 4. I've already done the 1 through 3, and this is the 4th one where you have minimum cost with additional constraints. So let's bring up the homework. Now in this homework, we had this scenario, and in this scenario, we solved the level capacity problem. And then we went through the chase demand, which was the second one, then the minimum cost plan. Now, even though they wanted minimum cost, they wanted to add more constraints. So we had minimum cost with additional constraints to be more realistic. Jack, who has been quiet to this point and usually represents more practical issues that are of interest to corporate, proposes, let's limit our FTEs per month. Corporate has wanted to do this for some time, and this seems like a good time to at least consider an FTE limit. To accommodate any extra demand, we can allow overtime and pay our employees time and a half for any overtime they work. If our results seem feasible, corporate will support us in this and possibly other important issues originating from this committee. Then Ida, wishing to consider broader constraints, suggests the ending inventory of 0 certainly has the advantage of lowering cost, but it increases risk of stockout that we may not be willing to accept. I would like to see us consider a minimum monthly ending inventory level for each month in the year to address the risk of stockout. Well, Glenda agreed with Ida's insight of the risk of stockout, and reinforcing Jack's appraisal of corporate summarizes toward the end of the meeting. Setting a limit to FTEs has been considered in the past, but was rejected by corporate due to their reluctance to require overtime, fearing higher costs and lower morale. However, I think we should consider Jack's proposal and maybe limit the amount of overtime in each month and push for a win-win proposal. Moreover, the risk of stockout has always been a problem that has been overlooked. This is a good time to consider Ida's proposal to lower inventory stockout risks that can be a strong argument to offset any increase in costs. Turning to Don, Glenda continues, these are very good suggestions and represent a variety of plans that we need to consider. Could we see a comparison of the aggregate plans in a handout for next meeting to lead our discussion? I think that would help us proceed in a more informed manner. Don completely agreed and adjourned the meeting. After the meeting, you and Don met in your office to clarify the requirements from the meeting so you could present your results in a manner as helpful as possible. You and Don agree on a set of plans. You and Don agree on limiting the number of FTEs per month to a maximum of 44, then select a set of plans that would show important relationships between regular time production, resulting in limited FTEs, overtime production, and risk of stockout. Here's the minimum cost plan with constraint. So begin with the minimum cost analysis presented at the meeting, and 1, limit the number of FTEs per month to 44. That's the first constraint. Second, allow the monthly overtime production at time and a half, but limit the monthly overtime production to 10% of the regular time production. Second constraint. Third, constrain the ending monthly inventory to be greater than or equal to 10. And that 10 could be changed, the 10% could be changed. So what is the sum of the annual regular time production cost, annual overtime production cost, annual hiring and firing cost, and inventory cost? And so here are the values, the correct values here for the regular time, the overtime, hiring and firing, carrying cost, and finally the total. So let's bring up Excel and let's solve this thing. Okay, we've already done, if you recall, we've already done the level capacity, we've already done the chase demand, and we've done the minimum cost. So now let's take this minimum cost and let's copy it over. And this time let's rename this minimum cost with constraints. With constraints. Okay. And we had basically essentially three constraints up here. The first one, let's bring this down here. right here. First of all, we had a max FTE of 44. Okay. Per month. Okay, and then the second one is overtime, and we had a max overtime of 0.1, 10% of the regular time production plan. And then finally, that's this one. And then finally, we had the inventory. Then we had a minimum ending inventory of 10, which was suggested per month. Okay, so there are the three additional requirements. Okay, so let's full screen this. And so first of all, we're going to need to, the production here is going to be made up of overtime. So right here, we need to add some columns here. And we're going to need some regular time production plan, overtime production plan, and then also that overtime is going to have a max of the overtime. Okay. Okay, now we have to be careful when we start changing this around when we have overtime. So now our production here is going to equal the regular time plus the overtime. Okay, that's what our production is going to equal. Bring all the way down here. Okay, and then our overtime here is going to be 10%. Actually, let's just say 10% F4 times our regular time. And there it is. So let's copy that down, all 12 months. That's good. And so this overtime will have this as a constraint. Now our FTEs, if you recall, we used a production plan. These FTEs, instead of our production plan, is going to be our regular time production. So we copy that down. And let's just make sure that we did do that. To regular time, regular time, regular time, yep. Good, and D6. Yep. Good. And then we have a hire and fire. Okay. And so what we're going to be doing here is this regular time and overtime. This is going to be our decision variables. Let me let me box that in, because that's going to be our decision variables right there. Okay. And then our other decision variables will be the actual our other decision variables will be the hiring and fire again. And actually, let's zero these out, and let's box these in. Home, box. So those are going to be our decision variables. This is our production, and then this is our hire and fire here. Now the regular time production is going to be tied into our inventory. Remember, this right here is going to tie our hire and fire together. Okay, now this right here is tying our production together, and our production is tying our regular time and overtime together. Okay, so everything looks pretty good, I think. And then down here, our regular time production, this is going to equal the 7.2. Now here's our regular time. Let's bring this sum over. And so now this time it's going to be times our regular time, and then our overtime is time and a half times our regular time unit cost, and that equals this times the sum of our overtime. Okay, so now that we have this, so now we know that our total cost now, this right here, is going to equal inventory plus our labor plus our production. And there it is. Okay, so there we have the minimum cost with constraints. And actually what we're going to have is a up here we're going to have a max FTE, a max overtime, and a min ending inventory along with our minimum cost. Okay, so it's time for solver. So let's come to data, come to solver. Okay, and we already have everything in here. You know, to be careful with this, let's just reset it all and start from scratch here. Our objective is going to be this right down here. Let's bring this up so you can see it. Let's bring this over. Objective here is going to be the total cost. Minimize. Okay, and then by changing cells here, by changing these cells, rigor time and overtime, comma, hiring and firing, and there we go. Now we add our constraints. We've got to be careful with these constraints. Okay, first of all, we have the overtime here is less than or equal to our FTEs. Oops, I'm sorry. Our overtime is less than or equal to our max overtime. I don't know what I was thinking. Here's our overtime less than our max overtime. There's the first constraint. Okay, then add our FTEs are less than or equal to the actual 44. And there that is. And then add our left-hand side is going to be equal to 0. Add our ending inventory is going to be greater than or equal to, it's going to be this 10. Add, then our ending inventory is going to be equal to, up here, the 5,800. Okay, and I hope we have everything. There's a lot going on at one time. We have unconstrained simplex algorithm. Let's just solve this thing and see how close we get. You never really know. Solve. Solver found a solution. Okay, and this looks pretty much like what we expected. So we can bring this down here, bring this up here. The rigor time cost is 2423592, 2423592. The overtime is 1555412, 1555412. The hiring and firing is 11058, 11058, 9676, 9676. The carrying cost is 81506. And then finally, the total is 2681245, 2681245, and we have it. Okay, and so there we have our minimum cost with these three constraints. Now, once we've done this, what people will do is probably start adding more constraints, take them out, relax some, add some, and do all kinds of things. But once you have it set up, you have a lot of power to create a plan that is appropriate to your company. So this is plan 4. That's all I have. I hope this helps. Between now and the next time I see you, I want to urge everyone to be safe and take care.